Florence isn't just a city in my mind. It's a memory I never lived, a home I couldn't find. Walking ancient streets, I feel stories in the stone. The city knows my soul, calls me to its throne. Santa Claus whispers legends in the air. Geniuses and rebels, visionaries everywhere. Something in the silence tells me I belong. Florence is waiting for me to step into my song. The weight of destiny heavy in my chest. Florence calls me home, and I can't resist. The weight of destiny guiding every breath. Florence calls me home, and I answer yes. I thought Casanova was my path, the valley, the prophecy, or the Tetrad's wrath. But Florence showed me something deeper, something old, a thread that's woven through my life, a story yet untold. I'm not just a guardian, not just a dream, chosen by the thread, not by fate or scheme. Florence calls me home, and I step into who I am, turning threads of destiny into visions for the land. Every path behind me, every shadow that I chased, led me to these streets, to the promise I embraced. The thread brought me here, not just to rest, but to remember what I haven't learned yet. Casanova production, charter brought to life, stories carried forward, purpose shining bright. Florence isn't calling me to create and run. Florence is calling me to become forth wisdom in ceremony's name. Voices entwined in a circle of light. We begin as one, hearts open tonight. Unity and difference, harmony not the same. Dignity, truth, and love we proclaim. Through reason, through art, through questions we find the long arc of unity, forever entwined. In unity's embrace we are woven as threads, not mirrored in sameness but harmonized instead. We honor the spark in each soul and each face, dignity dwelling in every place. Let philosophy shield us, keep vision undimmed, guarding the mind when confusion has brimmed. Truth dances in color, in song and in word. Awaken the art where the sacred is heard. We hold each other in honesty's hands, compassion our guide as each one understands. The child is protected, not symbol but soul. In innocence living, we each become whole. No power may govern the field we defend. No single tradition will ever transcend. We ask without trembling, each question a key. For truth is not fragile, but yearning and free. Our purpose is to heal of self and of earth, of communities broken and bringing new birth. Unity and difference, harmony not the same. Dignity, truth, and love we proclaim. Through reason, through art, through questions we find the long arc of unity, forever entwined. We pledge to the journey that never shall cease, to unity's promise, to hope and to peace. Voices rise as the night turns to dawn. Restoration forever, the circle moves on. What we heal in ourselves, we heal in the world. In the charter's own song, our future unfurled. Unity and difference, harmony not the same. Dignity, truth, and love we proclaim. Through reason, through art, through questions we find the long arc of unity, forever entwined. Forever begins here. Some lanterns burn in the open, some burn within, but the bravest ones carry their light into the unknown.
1975. On that late summer afternoon, the mountains shimmered like a mirage, the asphalt rippled with waves of trapped sunlight, and the air tasted faintly of dust and citrus. Gino Garcia walked slowly down the sidewalk, hands shoved into the pockets of his jeans, trying to outrun the sound of voices still echoing in his ears. He wasn't angry, He wasn't even surprised. He was just tired. Tired of being the quiet one. Tired of being the witness. Tired of feeling like itself was holding its breath. He didn't know where he was going until he saw the hand-painted sign, "Yard Sale. Everything must go." The arrow pointed toward a driveway shaded by an old jacaranda tree. Its purple blossoms scattered across the concrete like confetti from a celebration no one remembered attending. Gino hesitated. He wasn't looking for anything. He didn't need anything. But the idea of returning home, back into the loneliness, the silence, the unspoken things, made his chest tighten. So he turned. The yard sale was small, almost apologetic. A few folding tables sagged under the weight of mismatched dishes, old books, and boxes of forgotten trinkets. A rusty bicycle leaned against the garage. A stack of vinyl records sat in the sun, their covers warped from heat. An elderly woman sat in a lawn chair near the entrance, her white hair pinned back, her eyes sharp despite the sagging skin around them. She watched Gino approach with a look that made him feel as if she'd been expecting him. "Hot day," she said. "Yeah," Gino replied, unsure what else to say. "Take your time," she added, waving a hand toward the tables. "There's history here. Some of them are good, some of it stubborn." Gino offered a polite smile and wandered toward the back table, where a wooden box sat half-hidden beneath a stack of yellow newspapers. Something about it tugged at him, a quiet pull, like a memory he did not recognize. He lifted the newspapers, realizing it was not a box, it was a radio. The radio was a 1940s Zenith, its wooden casing cracked and its dial clouded with age. It was the kind of radio that belonged in a museum or a bunker, not a suburban driveway in 1975. Gino touched the tuning knob, which was cold. The old woman's voice floated over his shoulder. She said, "That one's special." Gino turned and asked, "How old is it?" She replied, "Older than you. Belonged to a World War II soldier." Gino blinked in surprise. "A soldier?" She nodded and explained, "He carried it with him through the war. Said it helped him feel less alone." Gino looked back at the radio, feeling a strange, familiar ache in his chest that he could not explain. He asked, "How much?" The woman shook her head and said, "It's not for sale." Gino frowned and protested. "But the sign," she interrupted. "I know what the sign says." She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing, and added, "This one isn't bought. It's given." Gino hesitated. "Given to who?" he asked. "To the one who needs it," she said simply. He opened his mouth to protest, but she was already standing, already lifting the radio with surprising strength, and already placing it gently into his arms. "It's yours," she said. "Take it." Gino stared at her. "Why me?" he asked. She smiled a small, knowing smile that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "Because you're listening," she said. He did not know what that meant. Not yet. But he carried the radio home anyway, its weight strangely comforting in his arms. That night, after dinner, after the house had settled into its usual uneasy quiet, Gino placed the radio on his desk. He didn't plug it in. He didn't try to turn it on. He just sat there, staring at it, feeling the faint hum of something he couldn't name. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft tick of the hallway clock. At 2:13 a.m., the radio turned on. Not with pop, not with a crackle, but with a steady, confident voice cutting through the darkness. The first broadcast. Gino didn't move for a long time after the radio fell silent. He sat on the edge of his bed, hands trembling, breath shallow, staring at the wooden box as if it might spring to life again. The room felt too small, too dark, too full of something he didn't have a name for. He finally stood, pacing the length of the room, trying to convince himself he hadn't heard what he'd heard. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone nearby had a powerful transmitter. Maybe the radio had picked up an old recording. But none of those explanations made sense. The broadcast had been too clear, too immediate, too alive. And the voice, the calm, steady voice that had spoken directly to him, that wasn't a recording. That wasn't anything he could explain. He sat back down, rubbing his face with both hands. "Get a grip," he whispered. But the room didn't feel like his anymore. It felt like a doorway. He reached out and touched the radio again. The wood was warm now, as if it had a pulse. He jerked his hand back. Down the hall, the refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside. The world continued as if nothing had happened. But something happened. Something impossible. He lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for dawn. Just tired. But he wasn't tired. He was terrified. That night, he tried to stay awake. He did homework. He listened to records. He read the same paragraph of a book again without absorbing a single word. But exhaustion eventually pulled him under. He woke to the sound of static. His eyes snapped open. The radio glowed softly in the dark. The House of Thin Walls. Grandma's house had always been small, but after the second night of broadcasts, it felt claustrophobic, as if the walls themselves were inching inward, listening, waiting. Gino moved through the rooms with a strange hyper-awareness, noticing things he'd never paid attention to before. The faint crack in the hallway ceiling, the way the floorboards creaked in a pattern, and the soft hum of the refrigerator that suddenly sounded like static. Everything felt amplified. The radio sat on his desk, silent and still, but it felt like it was watching him. He approached it slowly. "Why me?" he whispered. The radio didn't answer, but the silence felt aware. He sat on the edge of his bed, rubbing his temples. His thoughts were a tangled mess: fear, curiosity, grief, and something else he couldn't name. He felt stretched thin, like a thread pulled too tight. He lay back, staring at the ceiling. The house creaked. A car passed outside. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. These were normal sounds, ordinary sounds. But beneath them, he heard something else, a faint hum, a vibration, a whisper of static. He sat up. The radio remained dark. But the hum grew louder, not from the radio, but from the walls, the floor, and the air itself. It was as if the house were turning itself to a frequency only he could hear. He pressed his hands to his ears. "Stop," he whispered. The hum faded. He lowered his hands slowly, his heart pounding. He wasn't imagining this. He wasn't dreaming. Something was happening. Something that had started with the radio but was no longer contained by it. He stood and walked to the window, needing air. The backyard looked the same as always. The patchy grass, the old lemon tree, and the chain-link fence separating their yard from the neighbors. But the world felt thinner, as if one more breath, one more step, one more night could tear it open. He turned back to the radio. It sat there, silent and unassuming. But he knew better now. It wasn't a machine. It was a threshold. And something on the other side was waiting. The radio didn't turn on that night. It waited. Gino lay awake long after midnight, staring at the ceiling and listening to the faint hum that had begun to haunt the edges of his hearing. Every creak of the house made him flinch, and every shift in the air felt like a breath on the back of his neck. But the radio remained dark. He wasn't sure if he was relieved or disappointed. He turned onto his side, pulling the blanket up to his chin. The moonlight spilled across the floor in a pale ribbon, illuminating the radio's wooden casing. It looked harmless and ordinary, like something that belonged to a museum, not in the bedroom of a 17-year-old boy who couldn't sleep. He closed his eyes. The silence deepened. Then a soft click. His eyes snapped open. The radio dial glowed faintly, a warm amber light pulsing like a heartbeat. Gino sat up slowly, his breath caught in his throat. The static rose, not loud, but steady, like the sound of someone clearing their throat on the other side of time. "Good evening, Gino." Gino froze. The voice was smooth, measured, and almost gentle, the kind of voice that could read bedtime stories or deliver eulogies. It filled the room without raising its volume, as if it knew it didn't need to shout to be heard. "You've had a difficult day," the narrator said. "The boy feels the weight of things he cannot name." Gino's heart hammered. "Stop," he whispered. "Don't talk about me." But the radio continued, unbothered. He wonders if silence is safer than truth, if invisibility is easier than being seen, if the patterns of his family are destiny, or merely shadows. Gino's breath hitched. The voice softened. "You are not alone, Gino." He shook his head. "You don't know me." A pause. A crackle of static. "I know what you carry." Gino felt something inside him twist. Fear, anger, grief, all tangled together. "Why are you doing this?" he whispered. The radio hummed, as if considering the question. "Because you are listening," the narrator said, "and because the past is calling." Gino swallowed hard. Calling for what? Another pause. To be witnessed. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. Gino stood, backing away from the desk. "I don't want this," he said. "I didn't ask for this." The radio's glow dimmed slightly. "No one asks," the narrator said, "but some are chosen." Gino's voice cracked. "Chosen for what?" The answer came like a whisper through the static. "To carry what others could not." Gino shook his head violently. "No, no, I'm just a kid. I can't." "You already are," the voice said gently. The radio flickered, the light pulsing once, twice like a heartbeat, slowing. "Sleep now, Gino," the narrator said. "Tomorrow, the boy will begin to understand." The dial dimmed. The static faded. Silence returned. But it wasn't the same silence as before. It was full, heavy, and expectant. Gino stood in the middle of his room, trembling, staring at the radio as if it might speak again. It didn't. But he knew, with a certainty that made his skin prickle, that the radio wasn't done with him. The next morning, Gino woke with the uneasy feeling that the world had shifted while he slept. The sunlight streaming through his window felt too bright, too sharp, as if it were illuminating things he wasn't ready to see. He sat up slowly, rubbing sleep from his eyes, and glanced at the radio. It sat on his desk, silent and still. But he didn't trust it. He dressed quickly and headed to the kitchen, where the smell of chorizo and eggs filled the air. The radio sat on his desk, silent, but he could feel it watching him. "Why me?" he whispered. The radio didn't answer, but the silence felt like a held breath, and Gino knew, with a certainty that made his skin prickle, that the next time the radio spoke, it wouldn't be a broadcast. It would be a message. For him.
Beneath the ancient arches, as twilight folds the sky, lanterns are softly glowing, secrets drifting by. A woman rides the clouds, 7 stars in her hand. 4 become the sirens, shimmering through the land. Celestial voices call me, cosmic worlds invite, where fantasy and reality softly reunite.
The radio speaks only when the boy is alone. Gino stiffened. Why? He asked. Because truth requires solitude, the voice said, and because others would not understand. Rule 2, the narrator continued. The radio speaks only when the boy is ready. Gino shook his head. I'm not ready for any of this. You are, the voice said gently, or you would not hear us. The word us sent a chill down Gino's spine. Rule 3, the narrator said. The radio does not lie. Gino's breath caught. So everything you've shown me, everything you've said, is truth, the voice finished, even when it hurts. Gino felt his throat tighten. Rule 4, the voice said, softer now. The radio reveals only what the boy can bear. Gino shook his head. I can't bear any of this. You can, the narrator said, because you must. Gino looked up sharply. Why me? The radio hummed a low, resonant sound that vibrated in his bones. Because you listen, the voice said. Because you feel. Because you carry the silence of those who came before you. Gino felt tears prick his eyes. I don't want to carry anything. You already do, the narrator said, but you do not carry it alone. The room felt suddenly full, not crowded, but inhabited, as if unseen figures stood just beyond the edge of the lamplight. Gino whispered, What do you want me to do? The radio dimmed slightly, the blue glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Rule 5, the narrator said. The radio does not ask, it invites. Gino frowned. Invites me to what? The voice softened, almost tender. To witness. Static swelled and then faded. The dial dimmed and the room fell silent. But Gino understood something he hadn't been ready to see before. The radio wasn't haunting him. It was calling him. And the rules weren't restrictions. They were a path he had already begun to walk. He pushed the door open. The radio sat on his desk, dark and still. But the moment he stepped inside, the air shifted, a subtle tightening, like a breath drawn in anticipation. He closed the door behind him. Okay, he whispered. If you're going to talk, talk. Nothing happened. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the radio, wanting it to stay silent. It didn't. A soft click broke the stillness. The dial glowed, not amber, not blue, but a pale, ghostly white. Static rose like a slow inhale. Then the voice came. Good evening, Gabriel. Gino swallowed hard. Stop calling me that. It is your name, the narrator said. The one you carry, the one you hide behind. Gino frowned. What does that mean? The radio crackled as if amused. You pretend not to be seen, the voice said. But you want to be. You pretend not to care, but you do. You pretend the silence does not hurt you. Gino's breath caught. But it does. He stood abruptly. You don't know anything about me. The voice softened. I know you sleep with the blanket pulled to your chin, and I know, the voice said softly, that you fear you will never be brave. Gino looked up sharply, anger flaring through fear. You don't get to say that, he snapped. You don't know what I'm afraid of. The radio hummed low, resonant, almost sympathetic. I know because you listen, the narrator said, and because you feel, and because you carry the echoes of those who came before you. Gino shook his head. I don't want to carry anything. You already do, the voice said. But you do not carry it alone. The room felt suddenly full, not crowded, but inhabited, as if unseen figures stood just beyond the edge of the lamplight, watching, waiting, remembering. Gino whispered, Why are you telling me this? The radio dimmed slightly, the white glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Because the boy must understand himself, the narrator said, before he can understand the fallen. Gino's pulse quickened. The fallen? Static swelled, then faded. The voice lowered to a whisper. Your story did not begin with you, Gabriel, and it will not end with you. The dial flickered. The light went out. Silence returned. But Gino knew, with a certainty that made his skin prickle, that the radio hadn't just revealed his fears. It had revealed his inheritance. Not again, he whispered. A voice cut through the noise, breathless, terrified, young. Dios mío, ayúdame, Gino froze. He knew that voice. He had heard it in his dreams. He had heard it in the static. He had heard it in the whisper of a letter that shouldn't exist. The reporter's voice returned, frantic. The broadcast cut out in a burst of static. Then something new happened. Something impossible. The static didn't fade. It grew. It deepened. It thickened into a sound that wasn't sound, a vibration that filled the room, the walls, Gino's bones. The air shimmered, bending like heat rising off asphalt. Gabe staggered back. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no!" The radio pulsed with red light. The static twisted into a shape, a rhythm, a breath. Then a voice emerged. A voice Gino had never heard before. A voice that sounded like it was speaking from inside the static itself. Gino's blood ran cold. The voice was faint, distant, strained, as if calling across a great distance, or from beneath water, or from the edge of a memory. "Gino, escucha, listen." Gino's knees buckled. He sank to the floor, hands shaking. "Who are you?" he whispered. The static swelled. The voice grew clearer. "Gino, ven, come." The room tilted. The air thickened. The walls blurred at the edges. For a moment, a terrifying, impossible moment, Gino felt himself slipping. Not falling, not fainting, slipping. As if the floor beneath him had become a thin sheet of ice, and something beneath it was pulling him down. The thin place. For the next 2 days, Gino walked through the world as if it were slightly out of focus. Not blurry, just misaligned, like a photograph printed with a fraction of an inch off-center. Everything looked normal, but nothing felt normal. At school, he caught himself staring at the clock, convinced the second hand was skipping beats. In the hallway, he thought he heard someone whisper his name, only to turn and find no one there. During lunch, Lena asked him a question twice, before he realized she was talking to him. "You okay?" she asked, brow furrowed. "Yeah," he lied. "Just tired." She studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly, as if filing the observation away for later. But it wasn't tiring. It was the sense that the world had become porous, that something was leaking through. That night, Gino sat at his desk pretending to do homework. The radio sat in its usual place, silent and unlit, but its presence filled the room like a held breath.
Florence calls my name from shadows and from stars. I hear the city's heartbeat echo in my scars. Destiny's a whisper turning into flame. Tonight I step into the story, never be the same. Walking on the ancient streets, I feel a memory's touch, like a promise I can almost reach, but never clutch. Michelangelo and Galileo, giants in the stone, their voices in the marble, telling me I'm not alone. Florence, you've been waiting, holding out your hand, calling me to finally understand. I'm not just a wanderer, lost in the night. I'm the promise you remember, the dawn before the light. I thought my fate was written in steel and raging seas. The Navy, the valley, those old prophecies. But there's a thread unseen, weaving through my soul, drawing me to secrets The story that began before I drew first breath. Bring me to the city where I'll rewrite what's left. I won't run from what I am. I won't hide from what I've been. Florence, let your starlight open my skin. I'm not just a guardian, not just a name. I am the one who rises. I am the flame. Now I'm becoming the man I was meant to be. Lifting Casanova from a dream to destiny. I'll carry the charter. I'll build the new house. The thread that bound the past is spinning forward now. Florence calls my name from shadows and from stars. Tonight I step into the story. Here's my
The Prophecy of the Two Frequencies. Recorded in the final days before the Inquisition reached Toledo, they say Maria ben Gabriel did not write the prophecy. She heard it in the trembling of the frequency, heard it in the silence between breaths, heard it in the moment the cosmic fracture echoed into the human world. She carved it into a strip of olive wood, wrapped it in linen, and hid it in the hem of her daughter's blanket. It survived fire. It survived exile. It survived centuries. And this is what it said. The prophecy. When the harmony breaks, two worlds shall fall apart, one into shadow, one into silence. The first world shall descend, its beings torn from the cord, its law shattered, its memory lost. The second world shall forget, its lineages scattered, its stories burned, its resonance buried beneath the earth. But the frequency cannot remain broken. It will call to itself across the divide. In the age of forgetting, four shall rise in the valley of the wound. One who carries the alignment, one who remembers the memory, one who transforms the shadow, one who keeps the hidden line. When they stand together, the two worlds shall tremble, for the fracture that split the heavens and the wound that split the earth are the same. Rome had a way of holding its breath at night. The streets were quieter. The fountains whispered. The stones glowed faintly under the moonlight, as if remembering every soul who had ever walked them. Gino stepped out of the Oracle Cafe, the truth from the cup still vibrating in his chest. He needed air. He needed space. He needed to feel something that wasn't prophecy. He walked until he reached the edge of the piazza, where the moon hung low and full above the rooftops. Enormous, luminous, impossibly close. He looked up, and the world shifted. The vision begins. The moonlight thickened, turning silver into something almost liquid. The air hummed, not like the valley, not like the wound, but like a memory he had never lived. A soft wind rose, and then he saw them. Three silhouettes standing beneath the moon, one steady and luminous, one burning with shadow and fire, one radiant with lineage and clarity. Elizabeth, Veronica, Gabriella, not as they were in the valley, not as they were in Rome, but as the frequency saw them. Three souls, three frequencies, three destinies entwined with his. They stood in a triangle of light, the moon casting a halo around them. Gino felt his breath catch. He whispered, without knowing why, "Under the full moon, three souls entwined." The vision deepened. The moonlight wrapped around him like a cloak, pulling him forward, pulling him into the truth he had been avoiding. He stepped into the circle of light, and the words rose from him, not spoken but remembered. And when soulmates meet, destiny smiles beneath a sky of infinite constellations, promising a forever written in stardust. The three women lifted their faces toward him, not longing, not in rivalry, not in confusion, in recognition, as if they had always known this moment would come, as if the prophecy had been waiting for this declaration, as if the frequency itself had been holding its breath. The declaration. The moon pulsed, the air shimmered, and suddenly, impossibly, the three voices joined his. Not separate, not competing, not discordant, harmonized. Forever begins here. Casa Nova, the new house of art and spirit. They were still on the terrace overlooking the Tiber, the moonlight softening into a pale glow as dawn approached. Rome felt like a city suspended between breaths, ancient enough to hold prophecy, alive enough to birth new visions. Gabriella leaned forward, her eyes bright with a clarity that felt both human and divine. "Gino," she said softly, "we cannot return to the valley the same way we left it. The prophecy has shifted. The fifth frequency is rising, and the world is starving for meaning." Gino nodded, feeling the truth of it settle in his bones. "So, what ought we do?" Gabriella took a breath, the kind that signals a revelation. "We build a new house." Gino blinked. "A house?" She smiled. "A spiritual house, a creative house, a house made of story, sound, poetry, and performance." Her voice deepened. "A Casa Nova." The vision of Casa Nova. Gabriella stood, pacing slowly as she spoke, not out of anxiety, but out of inspiration. Casa Nova will be a sanctuary where creativity and spirituality meet, a place where the Tetrad's unity becomes a message the world can feel. She turned to him. Not sermons, not doctrines, not explanations. She touched her chest. "Art." Gino felt a spark ignite inside him. "Poetry," he said. Gabriella nodded. "Yes? Music? Absolutely. Performance? Essential." She stepped closer. "Art bypasses resistance. It speaks directly to the wound. It carries healing without demanding belief." Gino exhaled, understanding. "Art is resonance," Gabriella smiled. "And resonance is restoration. Why poetry and songwriting?" Gabriella sat again, her voice softening into something intimate. "Poetry is the oldest language of the soul. It holds paradox without breaking. It carries truth without violence." She looked at him with a tenderness that felt ancient. "And songwriting? Songwriting is how the frequency becomes human. It's how the unseen becomes breath." Gino felt his chest warm. "You're saying the Tetrad's unity can be expressed through art?" Gabriella nodded. "Not just expressed, preserved." She reached for his hand. "Art will keep us aligned when the valley shakes. Art will remind us of who we are when the fallen whisper. Art will carry the message long after we are gone. The message they must carry." Gino leaned forward. "What message?" Gabriella didn't hesitate. "Healing, restoration, reconciliation, the end of the fracture." She looked toward the river. The world is divided, wounded, suspicious of anything that claims to be truth. But art slips past the defenses. It awakens memory. It stirs longing. It reminds people of who they were before the fracture. She turned back to him. "And that is our calling. Unity within the Tetrad." Gino's voice softened. "And how do we stay united while doing this?" Gabriella smiled, not with certainty, but with hope. "By honoring each other's gift," Gino exhaled. "And they'll carry it into their own lives." Gabriella nodded. "That is how the fracture begins to close, not through force, but through art." The moment of commitment. Gino stood, energized. "Let's do it," he said. "Let's build Casa Nova." Gabriella rose too, her eyes shining with both courage and vulnerability. "Let's write the poems. Let's compose songs. Let's create the performances." She took his hands. "And let's do it together. as one field. Gino squeezed her hands gently. Casanova begins here.
Philosophy as a shield, a mystical song of unity and faith. At the edge of the valley, four hearts aligned. Gino spoke softly with reason entwined. We cannot build our home on doctrine alone. Our calling is universal, not carved in stone. Casanova, house of unity, breathe together. Let division cease. Philosophy shields us, reason sets us free. Faith and wisdom, hand in hand, bring peace. Aristotle whispers, unity brings order. Plato shows truth as a field to explore. Aquinas and Maimonides, reason and faith. Kierkegaard's lead with inquiry to embrace. Let reason be the shield, let faith breathe deep. We are not divided, we are here to see. Let tradition inspire, but never bind. Unity within, our spirits entwined. Mystical voices echo, calling us near. We refuse to be broken, refuse to fear. Traditions cherished, but never divide. We choose unity, let wisdom be our guide. Casanova, a house of unity stands, not a synagogue, not a church, but join hands. Let philosophy shield, let our spirits embrace in reason and faith. We find our sacred place.
Philosophical clarity, the discipline of reason. This is the moment where Gino realizes that if Casanova is going to survive the fallen's distortions, he must strengthen the one part of himself that cannot be manipulated, his mind. After the leaders departed and the valley settled into uneasy quiet, Gino walked alone toward the ridge. The moon was rising again, not full this time, but bright enough to illuminate the path. He felt different. Not lighter, not heavier, clearer. Gabriella's words echoed in him. Philosophy unites us. And for the first time, he understood what that meant. It wasn't about replacing faith. It wasn't about rejecting tradition. It was about protecting the tetrad from distortion. He sat on a stone overlooking the valley and whispered to himself, I need to understand how the mind is manipulated. so I can defend us." And instinctively, he reached for the thinker who had shaped the very foundations of reason, Aristotle. Why Aristotle? Because Aristotle wasn't just a philosopher. He was a technician of thought. He studied how arguments are built, how illusions deceive, how fallacies distort truth, how paradoxes trap the mind, how rhetoric can heal or harm. Gino felt drawn to him not as a scholar, but as a protector. "This is how I fight," he murmured. "Not with force, not with doctrine, with clarity." The study begins. Dialectic as defense. Gino opened Gabriella's notebook, the one she had given him in Rome, and began writing. He started with Aristotle's method of dialectic. Ask the right question, not the emotional question, not the reactive question. The essential question: what is the fallen's premise? Test the premise. Is it true? Is it partial? Is it distorted? What are they assuming about us? Identify the fallacy. Aristotle catalogued dozens: false dichotomy, appeal to fear, appeal to authority, hasty generalization, division fallacy, composition fallacy. Gino circled one: false division, the idea that difference equals separation. "That's their weapon," he whispered. Rebuild the argument with truth. Aristotle taught that the purpose of dialectic is not to win, but to clarify. Gino wrote, "Unity is not sameness. Difference is not division. Identity is not threat." He felt the field around him steady. The tetrad joins him. Gabriella approached first, sensing the shift. "What are you doing?" A philosophical charter is exactly what Casanova needs. A shared language, a shared ethic, a shared compass. And Gino and Gabriella co-authoring it is perfect. The union of reason and lineage, clarity and intuition, mind and spirit. The valley was quiet after the confrontation with the three spiritual leaders. The tetrad had chosen unity, but they all felt the same truth. Unity without structure is fragile. Unity without clarity is vulnerable. Unity without philosophy is undefended. Gino sat beneath the old cedar tree, Aristotle's ideas still echoing in his mind. Gabriella approached, carrying her notebook, the same one they used in Rome to write their first song. She sat beside him. "Gino," she said softly, "Casanova needs more than art. It needs a foundation." He nodded. "A charter." Gabriella smiled. "Yes, a philosophical one, something that protects us from distortion, something that defines who we are and who we refuse to become." Gino opened the notebook. "Let's write it together." And they did. The Casanova Philosophical Charter, co-authored by Gino and Gabriella. The principle of unity, without sameness. We affirm that unity is harmony, not uniformity. Difference is not division. Identity is not threat. Diversity of background, belief, and experience strengthens the field. Gino writes this line, Gabriella nods with pride. The principle of shared humanity. We honor the dignity of every person in the tetrad and beyond. No one's story is superior. No one's wound is trivial. No one's voice is expendable. Gabriella adds, healing begins with recognition. The principle of reason as protection. We use philosophy to guard against distortion. We test assumptions. We identify fallacies. We refuse false dichotomies. We reject any narrative that pits us against one another. Gino writes, the fallen attack thought before they attack spirit. The principle of art as revelation. We communicate truth through creativity. Poetry reveals what doctrine cannot. Music heals what argument cannot. Performance embodies what language cannot. Gabriella writes, art is the frequency made visible. The principle of mutual accountability. We hold one another with honesty and compassion. We name distortions when we feel them. We speak truth without violence. We listen without defensiveness. Gino adds, accountability is the highest form of love. The principle of the fifth frequency. We protect the child not as a symbol, but as a person. The child is not a prophecy to be used. The child is not a threat to be feared. The child is a life to be honored. Gabriella writes this with trembling hands. The principle of non-domination. No tradition, lineage, or authority may dominate the field. Casa Nova is not a church, synagogue, or institution. It is a sanctuary of unity. All faiths are welcome. No faith is imposed. Gino writes, philosophy is our common ground. The principle of open inquiry. We ask questions without fear. We explore without shame. We challenge ourselves without hostility. We grow without coercion. Gabriella adds, truth is not fragile. The principle of restoration. Our purpose is healing, of self, of community, of the world. We reject cycles of blame. We refuse narratives of scarcity. We choose reconciliation over retribution. Gino writes, restoration is the work of courage. The principle of forever. We commit to the long arc of unity. Not a moment, not a season, a lifetime. Together they write, forever begins here, the moment after. When they finish, Gabriella closes the notebook and places her hand over Gino's. This, she whispers, is the foundation of Casa Nova. Gino nods. And the shield against the fallen. The valley hums in agreement. The child stirs. The tetrad feels the field strengthen. Casa Nova now has a song and a vision, a purpose, and a philosophical charter. The new house is no longer an idea. It is a reality. The tetrad watches him go. Gabriella stepped forward first. Gino, where are you going? He turned, eyes steady. Into the storm. Elizabeth's voice trembled. Alone? No, he said softly. With everything we've built. Veronica swallowed hard. Is this the prophecy? Gino shook his head. This isn't prophecy. This is responsibility. Gabriella's eyes shone with both fear and pride. You're following the thread. Gino nodded. And trusting it will hold. The crucible of action. The wind rose, whipping around him, carrying the scent of rain and the echo of something ancient. The storm clouds cracked with distant thunder, not violent, but expectant. Gino felt the convergence, the fallen gathering at the edges, the valley bracing itself, the child's frequency rising, the charter anchoring the field, the road calling him forward. He whispered, let the mythic forces come. Let the storm break. Let the road reveal what it must. He wasn't fearless. He wasn't invincible. He wasn't chosen in the way legends pretend. He was simply ready, ready to act, ready to defend, ready to become the mind and heart of Casa Nova, winding through the quiet vineyards of Temecula. The winery he found was small, rustic, half-forgotten, a place to rest, a place to breathe. By midnight, the full moon hung bright and heavy above the vines. Gino stepped outside for a smoke, the cool air settling around him like a cloak. That's when he heard it. A woman's voice, soft and melodic, drifting from the shadows between the vines. I've been watching your every move, waiting for the right moment to speak to you. Gino stiffened. His pulse quickened, not with desire, but with warning. He turned toward the voice. Who are you? A figure stepped into the moonlight. Not seductive, not alluring, not human, radiant, ancient, luminous. Her hair shimmered like copper flame. Her eyes glowed with the warmth of a hearth. Her presence felt like poetry given form. I am Brigid, she said, the inspiration and guardian of poets. Gino's breath caught. You? You've been with me? She nodded. You have an ear to hear my voice. I have walked beside you through the years. In every line you wrote, in every melody you carried, in every moment you chose truth over illusion. Gino swallowed hard. No. Then why appear now? Brigid's expression softened and darkened. Because tonight the fallen laid a stumbling block in your path. The air shifted. The vines rustled. And behind Brigid, the shadows twisted, revealing what had been waiting for him. An illusion of desire, crafted to fracture his purpose, to confuse longing with loneliness, to turn vulnerability into downfall. Bridget lifted her hand, and the illusion dissolved like smoke. "You were never in danger of the act," she said gently. "You were in danger of the story they wanted you to believe about yourself." Gino exhaled shakily. "That I'm weak." "That you're alone," Bridget corrected. "That you're unworthy of the unity you've built. That you can be separated from the tetrad. That your destiny can be derailed by a moment of confusion." She stepped closer, her presence warm and steady. "But you are not alone. You are not weak. And you are not easily broken. The real temptation revealed." Bridget's voice lowered. "The fallen do not tempt with the body. They tempt with the mind, with the fear that you are still the man you once were, unanchored, unclaimed, unaligned." Gino felt the truth hit him like a wave. "They wanted me to doubt myself." Bridget nodded. "Because if you doubt yourself, you doubt the tetrad. And if you doubt the tetrad, the field fractures. And if the field fractures, the fifth frequency falters." Gino steadied himself. "But you came," Bridget smiled. "I always come when poets stand at the edge of their calling. The blessing of the guardian." She placed a hand over his heart, not intimate, but initiatory. "Gino Casanova," she said, "you walk the living thread. You carry the charter. You defend the unity. And you are watched over." The moon brightened. The vines shimmered. The air warmed. Bridget stepped back into the light. "Go north," she said. "The road is waiting. And the next revelation is near." Then she vanished, not like a ghost, but like a flame returning to its hearth. Gino stands firm. Gino dropped the cigarette, crushed it beneath his boot, looked up at the moon. He felt no shame, no fear, no confusion, only clarity, only purpose, only the steady pulse of the fifth frequency guiding him forward. He whispered into the night, "I will not fall." Bridget's deeper role. This moment is meant to be mythic, symbolic, initiatory, not sensual or explicit, because Bridget's deeper role in Casanova is never to seduce Gino. Her purpose is to awaken, protect, and initiate him into a higher clarity of love, not to entangle him in illusion. What appears seductive is revealed to be ritual, symbol, and teaching, not physical intimacy. The storm had passed. The valley slept. And Gino, exhausted from the road and the weight of the charter, finally drifted into a deep, dream-heavy sleep. At 3 a.m., the hour when the veil thinned, he woke with a start. Someone was in the room. Not a threat. Not a presence of flesh and shadow. A radiance. Bridget stood at the foot of the bed, not seductively dressed, but ritually adorned, wearing garments woven from moonlight and ancient Celtic symbols. Her movements were fluid, rhythmic, like a priestess performing a sacred dance older than language. A soft chant filled the room, not sung aloud, but resonating through the air like a memory. Gino sat up, breath caught in his throat. "Bridget, why are you here?" She didn't answer with words. She lifted a silver cup, the same kind used in ancient poetic rites, and poured a deep red wine that shimmered like liquid dawn. "This is not temptation," she said gently. "This is initiation." Gino took the cup. He drank. The wine tasted like fire and clarity, like truth. Bridget stepped closer, her voice becoming a poem, not seductive, but revelatory. Bridget's poem, "Love is Love," a quiet whisper in the chaos, a flame that warms without asking who it burns for. It knows no borders, no names, only hearts that dare to feel. Celebrate every shade of love, for in its purest form, it is infinite. Love is love. Words wrapped around Gino like a mantle, not entrancing, awakening. He felt something rise in him, ancient and new at once, a song formed on his tongue, not learned, but remembered. He sang in Greek, the language of early philosophers and mystics. Gino's song. Love is eros. Love is filio. Love is agape. Love is patience. Love is kind. Love never fails. The room glowed. Bridget stepped forward, not to embrace him, not to kiss him, but to anoint him. She placed her hands lightly on his temples, and a warm light flowed through him. His vision blurred, not into trance, but into revelation. "You are the keeper of the charter," Bridget whispered. "The defender of unity, the one who must understand every form of love, not to indulge it, but to heal it." Gino felt himself sinking, not into sleep, but into alignment. Bridget's final words echoed as he drifted into a luminous stillness. "Remember this, Gino Casanova. Love is not temptation. Love is vocation." And then she was gone. The chorus sing. Bridget is the guardian of inspiration. She protects Gino from illusions that distort love. She is the keeper of poetic lineage. She awakens the creative and philosophical clarity he needs. She is the initiator of the charter's heart. She teaches him that Casanova must be built on love that restores, not love that consumes. She is the shield against the fallen. Her presence dissolves illusions before they can take root. She is the one who prepares him for the next stage, not through seduction, but through illumination.
In the hush of Rome before the sunrise breaks, where the river recalls every step we take, truth fills the cup and the moon draws near, whispering softly, your forever starts here. I saw three souls entwined beneath silver light, threads of fate glowing softly in the night, not bound by time nor lost to fear, but etched in stardust, calling us near. And the sky opened wide like a doorway to the divine, telling us love is a field where our frequencies entwine. Forever begins here, beneath this boundless sky, where the wounded find healing and the broken can rise, where four become one and the fifth draws near. In the house we are building, forever begins here. Poetry is prayer, music as flame, a house of stories unshadowed by shame. Casanova rising from ashes and tears, a sanctuary echoing, forever begins here. The tetraphyll remembers, Veronica transforms, Gabriella interprets, and Gino holds the form. Four hearts in a circle, unbroken, sincere, and the child in the center, the fifth drawing near. Forever begins Futures are healed where valleys awaken, and prophecies revealed where art becomes truth, and the truth shines clear in the house of new beginnings. Forever begins forever begins here. A whisper in chaos, a gentle flame. Love flows unbidden, never asking who's to blame. No borders, no names, just hearts that dare to feel. Every shade shines in infinite appeal. Wrapped in wonder, awakening the soul. Ancient and new love makes us whole. Love is love, unending and bright, a light in the darkness, pure and alive. Celebrate the colors, the dance, the flight, in its purest form. Love will always survive. Love is love, a song that never dies. Love is eros, love is filial, love is agape's fire. Love is patient, kind, never asking to retire. Gino's vision blurs, revelation takes its hold. Anointed by Bridget, the charter's keeper, bold defender of unity, healer of every heart. Through alignment and vocation, love's sacred art. Love is
The road north carried Gino through the familiar contours of his past. The desert winds, the cracked earth, the long shadows of the San Bernardino Mountains. He had left this place 4 years earlier with a dream burning in his chest, to sing, to write, to make films in Florence, to build a life shaped by art, not survival. Now he returned not as the boy who fled, but as the man shaped by the valley, the charter, and the unity of Casanova. San Bernardino felt different, or maybe he was different. He walked the streets of his old neighborhood with a strange sense of déjà vu. As if the past and present were overlapping, as if the road itself were whispering, "Remember who you were, become who you must be." Gabriella's departure. Before leaving San Diego, Gabriella had stood with him at the edge of the valley, her eyes bright with both longing and resolve. "I have to return to Florence," she said. "The theater is calling. Casanova needs a voice in Italy, a stage, a presence, a beginning." Gino nodded, though his heart tightened. "And I need to decide," he said, "if I re-enlist, if I follow you there." Gabriella touched his cheek. "You don't follow me," she whispered. "You follow the thread. If it leads to Italy, we meet there. If it leads elsewhere, Casanova will still be one field." They parted with a promise, not of romance, not of certainty, but of alignment. The crossroads. Back in San Bernardino, Gino walked the streets of his childhood, thinking about the choice before him. Re-enlist in the Navy, secure orders to Italy, build Casanova Productions with Gabriella, or stay in California and let the dream fade.
Gino stepped forward. The ground beneath him felt like stone, old stone, cathedral stone, though he knew he was dreaming. As he approached, he felt something pressing into his palm, a rolled piece of parchment, warm, heavy, alive. The scroll. Gino unrolled it slowly. The parchment crackled like dry leaves. The writing was in Latin, the letters inked in a deep, ancient red. He recognized the cadence before he recognized the words. Ezekiel 38. A chill ran through him. The priest spoke softly, his voice echoing like a chant in a vast cathedral. This prophecy speaks of nations rising, of alliances forming, of storms gathering, of a world trembling on the edge of upheaval. Gino swallowed. Is this what's happening now?" The priest did not answer directly. Jesuits rarely do. Instead, he said, "Prophecy is not prediction. Prophecy is pattern. It reveals the shape of fear, the shape of hope, the shape of destiny." Gino felt dread coil in his stomach. But the Iran crisis, the hostages, is this the beginning of... The priest raised a hand. "Do not confuse symbol with schedule. Do not confuse fear with truth. Do not confuse the world's chaos with your calling." The priest's form flickered like a candle in wind. His final words echoed as the dream collapsed. "Do not fear the storm. Fear losing your purpose within it." Gino gasped awake. His coffee was cold. His journal lay open. His heart pounded like a drum. Outside, the bass sirens wailed, a reminder that the world was shifting, that history was moving, that he was being pulled into the center of something vast. But now he understood. The dread was not a warning of doom. It was a summons to clarity, a summons to courage, a summons to Casanova. You enlisted to escape. You left San Bernardino because you were afraid. You ran from your past, and now you are running again. Gino's chest tightened, because part of him believed it. The fallen knew. They circled him like sharks sensing blood. You are not a philosopher. You are not a leader. You are not Casanova. The words echoed through him like a hollow bell. The turning, the charter speaks. Then, faintly, another voice rose. Not external, not supernatural, internal, a memory, a line he had written with Gabriella under the cedar tree. Identity is not earned. Identity is revealed. The whisper of the fallen faltered. Another line surfaced. Unity is not proximity. Unity is resonance. The shadows recoiled. A third line rose. Reason protects us from distortion. The fallen hissed. Because the charter wasn't just philosophy. It was armor. It was alignment. It was truth. The counterforce. Gino remembers who he is. Gino opened his eyes. The ocean was still there. The ship was still humming. The crisis was still real. But the whispers were gone. He whispered into the night. I am not the boy who ran. I am the man who returned. The air steadied. I am not replaceable. I am part of the field. The shadows thinned. I am not unworthy. I am Casanova. The fallen retreated, not defeated, but denied. Why this tactic failed? Because the fallen underestimated something essential. Gino's identity is not built on ego. It is built on relationships. With Gabriella, with Elizabeth, with Veronica, with the child, with the charter, with the valley, with the unity. Identity rooted in connection cannot be fractured by isolation. And the fallen realized they cannot break what is held by the field. And the revelation came. The revelation. Identity cannot be stolen. It wasn't a vision. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a voice. It was a knowing, a truth rising from the deepest part of him. Your story is not a liability. Your vulnerability is not a weakness. Your past is not ammunition for the fallen. Your identity cannot be stolen. The steps of Santa Croce. Gino and Gabriella in Florence. Alone, late at night. The city breathing around them. This is where destiny stops whispering and starts speaking plainly. Florence at night felt like a held breath. Via dei Calzaiuoli stretched behind them. Quiet now, except for the soft echo of their footsteps and the distant violin drifting from Piazza della Signoria. The city glowed in warm amber, as if lit from within by centuries of memory. Gino had barely spoken since Rome. Gabriella felt it, the heaviness, the inwardness, the way he kept glancing at the buildings as if they were speaking to him. When they reached the steps of Santa Croce, she stopped. Sit with me. They sat. The basilica towered above them. White marble, green stone, the great Star of David carved into its facade, watching them like an ancient witness. Gino stared at it, jawed tight, breathed slowly. You're thinking again, Gabriella said softly. He didn't deny it. He took a long breath, eyes still fixed on the church. When I look at this city, when I look at the art, the buildings, the way everything feels, I feel like something is calling me. Gabriella leaned in slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. Is it calling you to create? He shook his head. It's deeper than that. A small shiver ran through her. Deeper how? The revelation begins. Gino finally turned toward her. His eyes were different, not troubled, not afraid, but awake, like someone who had seen something he couldn't unsee. It's like Florence isn't just a place to me. It's a memory I never lived, a home I never had, a promise I haven't fulfilled. Gabriella's breath caught. He continued, When I walk these streets, I feel like I'm walking inside a story that started long before I was born. Like the city knows me. Like it's been waiting. Gabriella felt her pulse quicken. Waiting for what? Gino looked back at Santa Croce, the resting place of Michelangelo, Galileo, Machiavelli, Rossini, the basilica of geniuses, rebels, visionaries. Waiting for me to step into who I really am. The words hung between them, electric. The weight of destiny. Gino rubbed his hands together, trying to ground himself. I thought the Navy was my path. I thought Casanova was my path. I thought the Valley was my path. But here, in Florence, I feel something older, something that doesn't belong to the Navy or the Tetrad or even the prophecy. Gabriella swallowed. What does it belong to? Gino's voice dropped. My destiny. The violin shifted into a minor key, as if echoing the gravity of his words. Gabriella whispered, Tell me. He closed his eyes. In my dream on the ship, I wasn't just a warrior. I wasn't just a guardian. I was chosen, not by prophecy, not by the fallen, not by the tetrad. He opened his eyes. By the thread. Gabriella felt the air change. The thread brought me here, he said. Not just to see you, not just to rest, but to remember something I haven't learned yet. The moment of truth. Gabriella placed a hand on his arm. Gino, what is Florence calling you to do? He looked at her, really looked, and she saw the fire behind his eyes, the same fire she saw in Rome when he first heard the frequency. It's calling me to become the man I was always meant to be. Gabriella's voice trembled. And who is that? Gino turned back to Santa Croce, the moonlight catching the marble like a blessing. The one who carries the story forward. He exhaled. The one who builds Casanova Productions. The one who brings the charter to life. The one who turns the thread into something the world can see. He looked at her again. The one who doesn't run anymore. Gabriella felt tears sting her eyes, because she knew, without question, that he was right. Florence wasn't calling him to create. Florence was calling him to become. Gabriella's revelation. This is one of the most emotionally charged, destiny-shaping, and identity-revealing moments in the entire Casanova arc. Because what Gabriella does here is not romantic manipulation, not ambition, not seduction. It is recognition. She finally sees the whole of Gino, the boy he was, the man he is becoming, and the lineage he carries. And she responds with a revelation of her own. They sat on the steps of Santa Croce, the basilica glowing like a marble lantern in the Florentine night. Gino's confession that Florence was calling him to become who he truly was hung between them like incense. Gabriella watched him, her heart tightening with a mixture of awe, fear, and something deeper she had never dared name. She reached into her bag. Gino, I need to show you something. He turned, surprised by the tremor in her voice. She pulled out his journal. He froze. I didn't mean to invade your privacy, she said softly. But when you fell asleep on the train, it slipped out of your bag. I opened it before I realized what it was. Gino swallowed hard. And you read it? She nodded. I read this. She opened the page. Her voice trembled as she read aloud. I was raised in the barrio, where machismo, the archetype of Latin male culture, cast a long shadow over every aspect of life. From a young age, I learned that men are expected to be the backbone of the family, providers, protectors, decisive leaders. I envisioned my future as a high school football star, but I was drawn to a different calling. I aspired to be a poet, a novelist, a singer-songwriter. I feel torn between honoring my father's dreams and forging my own identity. She closed the journal gently, as if it were something sacred. Gino, do you understand what this is? He looked away, ashamed. It's weakness, he muttered. No, she said firmly. It's your truth, and your truth is the most powerful thing about you. She placed the journal in his hands. You've spent your whole life trying to choose between who you were expected to be and who you were born to be, but you don't have to choose anymore. Gino's breath shook. Gabriella, what are you saying? She took a deep breath, the kind a person takes before stepping into destiny. The dowry. My family, she said quietly, left me something. A dowry. Gino blinked. A dowry? She nodded. It includes vineyards in Tuscany and a small winery outside Siena. It's been in my family for generations. I've never known what to do with it. Until now. Gino stared at her, stunned. Gabriella, why are you telling me this? She looked directly into his eyes. Because I want to give it to Casanova. He felt the world tilt. What? She leaned closer, her voice steady, resolute. The vineyards, the winery, the land, the income, all of it. It can fund Casanova Productions. It can give us a home base in Italy. It can give you the freedom to create, to film, to write, to build the new house. Gino shook his head, overwhelmed. Gabriella, that's your inheritance. It's our future, she corrected. He stared at her, breathless. Why would you do that? She swallowed hard. Because I believe in you. Because I believe in Casanova. Because I believe in the thread. And because... She hesitated. Then she said it. Because I want to build this life with you. Gino's heart pounded. Gabriella. She reached for his hand. Gino, our marriage would not be about romance or tradition. It would be an alliance, a partnership, a merging of destinies. You and I, together, could build something the world has never seen. She squeezed his hand. You carry the story. I carry the stage. You carry the charter. I carry the inheritance. Together, we ascend.
San Bernardino, California, is a place where deep ancestral history intersects directly with the sprawling, rapid expansion of modern life. For decades, enormous concrete overpasses and roaring highways were carved right through the community, physically boxing in the West Side barrio, threatening to suffocate the ambitions of people living underneath them. But beyond that asphalt maze, the towering San Bernardino Mountains stand as a quiet, enduring reminder of the area's ancient geography and the deep roots of the families who settled there. For a young man named Gino, those roots were most visible right in his own backyard. His grandmother cultivated a vibrant garden in the dry soil, nurturing fragile shoots even as the ground vibrated from the heavy freight trains passing by. Growing up in a large, tight-knit Mexican-American family offered Gino a strong foundation. But his individual identity was heavily weighted by the expectations, the faith, and the traditions of all the generations that came before him. When Gino first began to write, he acted entirely as a scribe, filling his journals with family genealogies and Spanish prayers, leaving absolutely no margin on the page for his own ideas. Preserving history is a vital act of respect, and it provides a profound sense of safety. However, restricting your voice entirely to the echoes of the past creates an invisible boundary that makes it nearly impossible to chart your own course. Seeking a way to break out of that rigid mold, Gino turned to literature. He studied the minds of classic authors to learn how to express his own internal world. Through the journals of André Gide, Gino realized that writing served as a process of discovery, a way to lose and then find his soul within the rhythms of the prose. Then, the American novelist William Faulkner introduced him to the vital concept that the only conflict genuinely worth writing about is the human heart at war with itself. But the heavy influence of these literary giants created a new problem. Gino realized he was starting to sound exactly like Faulkner and Gide, recalling Ralph Waldo Emerson's warning that a parrot of other men's thinking knows nothing of freedom. Gino found himself trapped between two powerful forces. He tried to step away from the rigid structure of his family's traditions, only to have his voice immediately eclipsed by the overpowering styles of his new literary idols. Swapping one set of inherited rules for another does not make you a creator. Whether you are perfectly mimicking your ancestors or perfectly mimicking famous novelists, the result is still a form of silence. Late at night near the 16th Street Bridge, the idling freight trains became a physical ultimatum. To stay in the shadows was to wither. To board the train was to move toward his own destiny. He realized that finding his voice didn't mean he had to abandon his heritage, and it certainly didn't mean he had to perfectly replicate the authors he admired. Instead, he began to weave them together. He took the sensory details of the barrio, his grandmother's garden, and the Spanish prayers of his youth, and he fused them with the introspective, experimental prose styles he had studied. By forcing his deep cultural roots to directly collide with his modern literary sensibilities, Gino finally crafted a style that belonged entirely to him. Once you forge a distinct personal voice in a private journal, the next logical step is to see what happens when you release it into the public sphere. Years later, a teacher named Maya, working in a city far from San Bernardino, noticed her own immigrant students struggling to find their place. When she read his essays aloud in class, the vivid details of the train tracks and his family's struggles captured their attention immediately. As Maya read, students who had never seen the West Side recognized their own neighborhoods in his descriptions of dust and orange blossoms. Gino's specific memories of a grandmother's garden gave these teenagers a language for their own longing. Gino leveraged digital platforms to construct a decentralized network for a global community of storytellers. He established online mentorships, treating the internet as a two-way street. This gave emerging creators the confidence to blend family traditions with new techniques and find their own distinct paths. Writing a good story is a significant accomplishment, but using the hard-won authenticity of your own voice to help others find theirs ensures that the creative journey outlives any single author.
Gino learns that to be truly free, he must embrace his inner conflict, trusting that his unique voice will emerge from the crucible of doubt and longing. In the end, Gino's emotional struggle is not a weakness, but a source of strength. It is the fire that tempers his resolve, the shadow that sharpens his light. Through this battle, he discovers that the quest for authenticity is the most courageous journey of a journey that begins within and radiates outward to touch the world. Family is the first community Gino knows, a source of love, wisdom, and expectation. His parents and grandparents pass down stories, values, and faith, creating a foundation that both supports and constrains him. The garden his grandmother tends beside the restless trains is a symbol of resilience and hope. It represents the nurturing power of tradition, the way family can cultivate dreams even in harsh environments. Gino's parents, with their stubborn faith and hard-won lessons, teach him to persevere, to honor his heritage, and to find strength in adversity. Their voices echo in his mind, urging him to remember where he comes from and to carry forward the legacy of those who came before. Yet, this inheritance is not without its burdens. The expectations of family and tradition can feel like invisible chains, binding Gino to a path he did not choose. He feels the pressure to conform, to uphold the values and customs that have defined his family for generations. Tradition offers comfort and stability, but it can also stifle creativity and individuality. Gino's struggle is to reconcile these opposing forces, to find a way to honor his family and tradition while still pursuing authenticity. In the end, Gino's conflict is not a rejection of family and tradition, but a transformation. He seeks to become a creator who draws strength from his heritage, who honors the past while embracing the future. Through this process, Gino discovers that the most profound acts of self-expression are those that weave together the threads of tradition and individuality, creating a tapestry that is uniquely his, integrating heritage into creativity. Gino's creative journey is inseparable from his heritage. The rhythms of his childhood, the sounds of trains, the scent of his grandmother's garden, the stories told in the West Side barrio become the raw material for his art. In the end, Gino's integration of heritage into creativity is an act of transformation. He turns the raw ore of experience into gold through the dawn. A central theme in Gino's work is the exploration of identity, how one's sense of self is shaped by ancestry, language, and tradition. He weaves together Mexican roots and Christian faith, with family stories, prayers, and customs as motifs in his writing and music. This blending of cultures is not only a source of pride, but also a wellspring of creative inspiration, allowing Gino to honor his past while forging his own path. The motif of the train and the journey, both literal and metaphorical, runs through Gino's art. It symbolizes migration, the search for opportunity, and the transformative power of leaving home to discover one's destiny. This theme reflects the broader narrative of many immigrant families, as well as Gino's personal quest for meaning and purpose, faith and spirituality. Gino's creative work is infused with spiritual themes, drawing on the prayers, rituals, and faith traditions of his family. His art often contemplates the role of faith in overcoming adversity, finding guidance, and seeking redemption. This spiritual dimension adds depth and universality to his work, connecting personal experience with larger existential questions. Community and belonging. Finally, Gino's art reflects a longing for community and a sense of belonging. In summary, Gino's storytelling style evolves from inherited tradition to personal innovation, from collective memory to individual expression, and from seeking belonging to inspiring others. This evolution mirrors his journey toward authenticity, creativity, and self-realization. Gino's ability to transform the particular into the universal allows his stories to resonate with audiences far beyond his neighborhood. As Gino's reputation grows, he becomes a role model for aspiring writers, musicians, and artists, especially those from marginalized or underrepresented communities. His journey from self-doubt to creative confidence demonstrates that authentic storytelling can open doors and change lives. Workshops, collaborations, and mentorships emerge as Gino shares his process and encourages others to tell their own stories, creating a ripple effect of creativity and empowerment, advocacy, and social change. Gino's art, rooted in lived experience, becomes a tool for advocacy. His stories highlight social issues such as migration, inequality, and cultural preservation, bringing attention to challenges faced by his community and others like it. Through public readings, essays, and partnerships with organizations, Gino's voice contributes to broader movements for justice and inclusion, inspiring action and solidarity across communities. So, legacy and lasting impact. Over time, Gino's influence is felt not only in the barrio, but in the wider world. His work is studied, celebrated, and remembered as a testament to the power of storytelling to unite, heal, and transform. The seeds he plants through words, music, and mentorship continue to grow, ensuring that the stories of his community and the lessons they hold endure for generations.
While your light Lucia stands awakened and ready in the desert night under Coachella sky. A burden becomes a birthright. Hope flickers in ancestral lights. From silent grief springs living courage. A call resounds as the dawn begins to rise. Rise together, let no voice be lost. Join hands, ignite the sacred flame. Bound by memory, bound for tomorrow we stand. United in love, not shame. Our hope is sparked in the fire of unity, calling all souls to the fifth frequency. Ancestral suffering pulses in the veins, centuries marked by tyranny's hand. Grows tremble with the weight of sorrow. Music bears the blood memories command. Transformation blooms from agony's reckoning. Each note a gift from those who could not stand alone. Voice emerges from desert shadows. Prophecy calls, let's deliver and expand. We rise as one, our scars, our stories. Strength in unity, forged by pain. We will not break, we will not vanish. Ancestors guide us through the rain. Together we honor the fallen's legacy. In fearless harmony, we claim our destiny. Tapestry woven with exile and loss. Generations bruised by hatred's force. Echoes trembling in the marrow and soul. Divisions threaten to halt our course. But silence is not our inheritance. Action is summoned by ancestral remorse. We answer tyranny with bold resistance. For unity, for hope, we chart a new course. Turn trauma to triumph, division to unity. Forge a destiny with hearts aligned. Let prophecy guide, let music uplift the future of hope for all mankind. Our bond is stronger than any darkness. In the fifth frequency, new stars are sparked. Prophecy moves through sacred hands. Heritage embraced, spirit unbound. Silent harmonies become a roar. Lucia's voice lifts from deserted ground. The scrolls awaken, music speaks the fifth frequency's power is found. We are transformed, we are deliverance and unity and hope. Our future is crowned. Deliverance begins when we stand together. The world spirit anchored in our hands. Let us rise, let us sing, let us fight for tomorrow, for hope, for our lands. No darkness can shatter united hearts. Our song is the shield. brightly. We stand together now and forever, turning trauma into triumph, darkness into light.